it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. This is my October wrap up. I know it's coming to you a little late. Life has been very chaotic for the past several months. October was a great reading month for me though. I have 11 books to talk to you about today. Technically, I finished one of them in November, but we'll get to that. Because I have so many books to talk to you about, I am going to try to be relatively quick with this video. I think it's going to be a long one. Go ahead, get a drink and a snack, and without further ado, here are the 11 books that I read in October. Sort of. And the first one I want to talk to you about is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the one that I did technically finish in November. However, this is the book that my book club read for October. I was late. Since this was the October book, I did want to include it in the October wrap up, even though technically I finished it in the first couple of days of November. This is the second book in a trilogy, and I can't tell you anything about it. Like, I cannot tell you the plot, I can't tell you the villains, I can't tell you the characters, because all of that information is massive spoilers for book one. What I will say is that this is a series that primarily follows Sansia, and she is a thief. In the first book, she is hired to steal an item, but then once she steals the item, she discovers that it could cause the literal end of the world. So she decides to not give the item to the people who hired her to steal it, and then she gets caught up in a whirlwind of events going on after that. The magic system in this series is one that I really like, and what I specifically like about this series is that the magic system, it has very defined rules. Essentially, in this series, you can hack items to convince the item that reality is not exactly the way it is, so that the item will do something for you that it wouldn't normally do. And I know that's super vague. It makes a lot more sense when you read the book, but I just really love how creative Robert Jackson Bennett got with this, because the rules of the magic are so very constrained and precise, yet he's able to make the way you use the magic very creative. It feels very fresh and innovative to me. I gave the first book in this series 4 stars, and my major complaint was just that I didn't fully buy into the group of characters that end up falling in with Sansia. I didn't really buy them trusting each other enough to work together to do what they needed to do. This book I'm giving a 4.5. It is set 3 years after book 1, and we are kind of now dealing with the reveal that happens at the end of book 1, which is why I can't tell you anything, because a lot of things get revealed. Since 3 years have passed, that one complaint I had has been resolved. These characters obviously know each other. You can see the banter between them. You can really see how much they care about each other on page. It's a really great found family, if that's a trope that you're into. I really liked this. I'm so sorry I cannot tell you anything more about this book. The next 3 books that I want to talk to you about, I read for my BookTube Knockout series, where I read Jenny. The first book I want to talk about is The Gilded Wolves. This is kind of hard for me to talk about because, to be perfectly honest, I don't really remember much of this book. I don't know if it's a me thing, because life has been so chaotic. I definitely have had some brain fog issues here and there. And this is a young adult novel, and I know that I rated it 3.5 stars and that I'm not going to continue the series, and I felt pretty neutral about this book. I didn't personally dislike anything, it just didn't really work for me. And so I'm not sure if the fact that I can't remember anything about this book is a me problem because of the brain fog, or if it's like a book issue. I genuinely don't know. At its core, this book is a heist story. It is like a ragtag group of teenagers working together. And I do remember that I got really, really angry because these are essentially supposed to be professional thieves. And they went into the basement secret treasure vault of their enemy and didn't even check for booby traps. And I was like, hello? Obviously there's gonna be booby traps. Like, this is a heist. What do you mean? And I remember that, like, I overall had a fun time with the story. I didn't dislike it because I still rated it 3.5 stars, which is a good rating. I just truly don't remember what happened in this book. At the end of the day, I don't think I would recommend this book, but I also don't think I would discourage anybody from picking it up. I think I just feel very neutral about it. It was a good time, but it's not memorable. And, you know, sometimes you don't need a book to be memorable. Sometimes you just want to be entertained. And this book did entertain me. I just don't remember it. For that vlog, I also read Kaikeyi, which is a retelling of the Ramayana, and this one I definitely liked more than The Gilded Wolves, and I remember this, and I want to say that, like, this is a story that, even though I rated 3.5 stars also, this is a story that has since, like, stuck with me and I do really think about. There is definitely potential that a reread of this book could bump up to like a 4-star. I think I actually did rate it like 4 stars on Goodreads. Basically, this follows Kaikeyi, who is in the original tale kind of this like evil stepmother figure, but in this story she is centered and you get her side of the story and why she makes the choices she makes and how she ends up this like villainous evil character and why she does the things that she does. The only real issue that I had with this book is that thematically the relationships that Kaikeyi makes are so very important. They're integral to the plot and the magic system, and they're also integral to forming the decisions that Kaikeyi makes as the story progresses. In my opinion, not enough page time was devoted to developing those relationships. So it ended up being that a lot of the times I was told that Kaikeyi had this strong relationship, but I couldn't fully buy into that because the development of that happened off page. The issue is, in order to solve that, there would have had to be a significant amount of pages added to this book, and I do understand that this is a book that is over 400 pages already, so adding another like 100, 200 pages to this book in order to fully flesh out those relationships has issues in there. And I also know that like a lot of people like shorter books than I do. I personally do not care how long a book is. I will read a 100-page book. I will read a 1,200-page book as long as I feel like the pages have value and meaning to the story. But I also understand that like this is a debut novel. In like the literary world, you only get one chance to debut, and page count will definitely deter a lot of people from picking up a book if they feel like it is too long. So I do understand that like we have a whole plot to get through. This is Kaikeyi's entire life and there's a lot that happens plot-wise. And so I understand that we have to get through this plot and we don't necessarily have the pages to devote to these relationships, but because we don't, unfortunately, I personally could not buy into them completely. That being said, I cannot wait to see what Vaishnavi Patel puts out next. I'm definitely gonna buy it. I'm definitely gonna read it. Like, I think they are so very talented, and I'm very, very excited to see what they put out next. Overall, though, I do still recommend this book. I think it is like a really, really good, solid book. It just wasn't like a new all-time favorite. And that's perfectly fine. The third and final book that I picked up for that vlog was Mexican Gothic, and oh boy, this is such a win. Oh my god, I love this book. It's so good. I feel like recently, in the past couple of years, Gothic books have sort of had this like renaissance happening. As someone who is like a lover of Gothic tales, I am absolutely thriving in this little like revival of Gothic novels. But I do have to say that there are some people that say their book is Gothic when it is just like atmospheric or uses like some Gothic aesthetics. And then there are books that are truly Gothic, like the actual Gothic archetype of what that genre specifically means. And this is a Gothic book. It is so good. I love it so much. Okay, so this is a book where you follow Noemi, and she is kind of this like sort of party girl, a little bit socialite. She is so vivacious, and she just like loves life. She loves experiencing things. She loves going places with her friends and doing things. And she is just instantly one of my new favorite characters of all time. One day, Noemi's father gets a letter from Noemi's cousin, and it's basically like pleading for help, pleading for someone to save her. And this is very alarming to the family. Noemi's cousin got married after an extremely short engagement, and then she went to live with her husband at his family's estate. And everyone in the family kind of like assumed that she was happy. There was a little bit of scandal that the marriage happened so quickly, but they assumed that she was like very much in love and happy. So this letter is obviously very unsettling. So Noemi goes to investigate, and then she gets to the house, and it is so creepy and sinister and just perfection. Things start so slowly that you kind of just get drawn into this story, and like things just get more and more horrific as you go, but like you get to the point where you're not sure what's real. Noemi starts having these dreams, so like you as the reader don't know if this is something that happened or if this is like a dream that she's having. It's so good. Please read this book. I loved it so much. The next book that I want to talk to you about is Shady Hollow by Juno Black. This is the first book in an adult cozy mystery series. I picked this book up to read with my sister, who loves mystery novels, because it was recommended as Gilmore Girls meets Beatrix Potter, but make it mystery. And I was like, say less. So this is an adult mystery, but all the characters in here are animals. It is so cute and charming. It's very, very whimsical. I had a great time with this. So basically in this, you follow this little fox. Her name is Vera Vixen, and she is an investigative journalist in Shady Hollow. For the most part, Shady Hollow is like this very, very quiet small town. So Vera doesn't really have much to write about for the newspaper. Like a lot of what she writes is just human interest fluff pieces. But then one day, the grumpy old toad is murdered, and Vera is like, I'm gonna solve this mystery. I'm gonna figure out who killed him. This book is a really, really good cozy time. I gave this book 3 stars. I wouldn't say like the mystery is gonna like blow your mind, but if you're wanting something that's like whimsical and cozy, it can't get better than this. It's really, really delightful. If you like cozy mysteries, I recommend this series. The next 3 books are all books that I read for my vampire vlog. So I do have like a full-length vlog talking about all of my feelings for the next 3 books if you want to know in depth more what I thought. The first of that is Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. Unfortunately, I did not like this book. Basically, what it came down to with this book is that like you're following Shori, and she is a young vampire. She is not an adult. The vampire society and the vampires within this book I definitely think are interesting. Octavia E. Butler did a really good job world building in here. I would actually say that the world building is like the strongest part of the novel, and like the plot is very like fine, to be honest. It almost feels as though this was like more of like a thought experiment about vampires than an actual vampire story. My real issue with this story is that you're following Shori, and she is a vampire child, and from the context clues that I have gathered, I would imagine that she's like probably around the equivalent of like 16 years old in human age, because vampires age and mature much slowly in this. They are born, not created. And so despite the fact that Shori is 53 like human years, she has not reached like full development, and I would estimate probably around 16 as an equivalent, but you don't really get one in the book. Basically, every adult man in this book is just like a super creepy predator, and I hated it. I truly hated the experience. When Shori is described by another person, they say she looks like she's 11 years old. I ended up giving this 2 stars basically because of the world building, and that's it. I just could not get over the creepiness of it. So yeah, I unfortunately do not recommend this book. Next up, I read The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This is the second book in the Nightborn duet, but also potentially book 2 of 6 of like the Crowns of Nyaxia series. So I don't know. It's like a 6-book series split up into 3 duologies. This basically follows Aurea, who is the human adopted daughter of the vampire king. In this world, it is very, very dangerous to turn a human into a vampire. The vast majority die in the process. So the king has basically been training his daughter her entire life in order for her to survive. And then in the first book, she enters a tournament, and if she can win the tournament, she's granted a wish from the goddess, and then like she will be able to become a vampire. In the tournament, obviously she meets Rain, who's a vampire, and the two are kind of like reluctant allies to friends to lovers. This is a series that I definitely recommend if you want a fantasy romance, especially if you do like vampires. Nothing in here is gonna blow your mind, but it is a really, really good time. It's very, very entertaining. I had a blast, and like I flew through these books. I will say that like the first book in the series is definitely the strength. I gave that 4 stars. I gave this one 3 stars, but like I still absolutely had a blast. I'm very, very happy that I read this book. And then the last book for the vampire vlog, which is definitely the star of that vlog, is Vampires of El Norte. This is Isabel Cañas's sophomore novel and her newest release this year. It is one of my most anticipated books of the entire year, and I am so happy to say that I loved it. It did not disappoint me. It feels so good when a book that you've been looking forward to reading really like lives up to your expectations for it. And also I feel like this is really solidifying Isabel Cañas as a new favorite author of mine. She has something so very special about her writing, and it just really clicks with me. I love her prose. It is so fantastic. Like her debut novel, this is also a gothic horror story, but I wanted to say that something I personally didn't realize before I picked this book up is that this is also a gothic romance story, and I would say that probably 60% of the book is actually about the romance and 40% of the book is horrifying. In this book, you follow Nina and Nestor, and at the beginning of the book, they are teenagers. Nestor and Nina grew up together. They are the absolute best of friends, and now as teenagers, they're kind of sort of developing feelings for each other. It's very, very cute. But one night, the two of them sneak out to have a little adventure together and kind of investigate a ghost story. And Nina actually ends up being attacked by this monster. Now, Nestor is fully and completely convinced that Nina has died. Like, he 100% thinks that she is dead. As a result, Nestor flees and runs away. In his mind, he thinks that, like, his best friend is dead, and he just does not want to live there anymore. However, Nina did not die, and then I think like 7 years later, Nestor gets this letter and it's asking him to come back and help. The American military is coming and trying to invade Mexico, and they need help, so Nestor agrees. He comes back, and then he realizes that Nina is still alive. I love this book, and I love Nina and Nestor. Like, both of them obviously have their own issues. Nina is so angry, and like, rightfully so. And like, both of them are so dramatic in like the best way. Like, it's so good. It's so very, very gothic. The yearning and the pining are so excellent. I loved it. I absolutely loved this relationship. It is so gothic and so fantastic and so over the top and ridiculous and dramatic, and like, I just loved it. It's great. As like the plot line with the American military coming to try to invade Mexico, that's where we start to see a return of these creatures, which one of them was what attacked Nina previously, and then Nina and Nestor kind of like get wrapped up into that. Overall, I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Really, like, literally my only complaint is that like I wanted more vampires. I thought that the resolution with the vampire subplot was like a little bit convenient. I wanted more vampires and more vampire decapitations, and I wanted the characters kind of to have to like work a little bit harder at figuring out the solution to the vampires. But I still love this. 100% recommend this. I think it's so good. You definitely should read this. If you like gothic stories, you should read this. And now we have reached the final 3 books that I want to talk to you about that I read in October. And I want to say something before I talk about these books, and I want to make it very clear. I am not kidding. I am not joking. Mom, if you are watching this, this is where you close the video. I don't want to talk about these books with you, Mother. No. If you're watching this video, don't even bring it up. Don't even tell me. I don't want to know. Just close the video, and I'll see you next time. This is not for you, Mother. No moms, no parents here, right? Okay, you can be a parent, just don't be my parent. As long as none of my parents are here, we're fine. You may remember that last month I dipped my toes into a Why Choose Bully dark romance series. I read the Lords of Forsyth trilogy, which is part of a larger series called the Royals of Forsyth, and since then I read the second trilogy. I think at this point we can acknowledge the fact that Silver Under Nightfall has changed me as a person, and I like polyamorous and why choose romance novels. I like them. I like them. I am a very monogamous person in my real life, but when I'm reading romance, that goes out the window. I want to make it very, very clear that The Royals of Forsyth is a dark romance. It is also a bully romance, and so I know that it is definitely not going to be for everybody. And to be perfectly honest, I really don't enjoy like the bully aspects of the romance like at all. But it's one of those things where like I know that is how it's going to be when I go into the book. The authors do provide like a content warning for what's included in the book, and they also say that like they have even more in-depth content warnings on like their website if you want to know like specifically what the book is going to get into, because I know that this is going to be included, and I know that like the authors definitely don't think that this is like a healthy, good relationship. Like they know that it is toxic and like abusive. I kind of can like compartmentalize that. And so like when I get to like that part of the story, I kind of just like skim those parts and just like delete them from my brain basically, and I'm like no, it's fine, that never happened. It is one of those things where it's like if you understand that like that's the intent of the book and like it's definitely not meant to portray a healthy relationship and you understand that going into it, then I definitely think if you like dark romance, that you could really like the Royals of Forsyth series. I think the writing is actually really excellent. And I also think that like the overarching like non-romantic plotline in this second trilogy about the Dukes. The first trilogy was about like the Lords of Forsyth. This is about the Dukes. And I think the non-romantic plotline is so much better than the first one. I think it's like actually really good. Well, okay, it's really medium. But like at the same time, like it's very engaging and like it definitely keeps you moving, keeps you turning pages. I genuinely wanted to know what was gonna happen. I'm so sorry. I'm jumping like all over the place talking about this series. This is a world that's set at a university, and at the university there are like these 5 fraternities. You kind of get like the impression that like there are more than 5 of them, but there are like 5 main fraternities. These fraternities like all kind of like have nicknames, and like the first fraternity was the Lords, this one is the Dukes, and they're all like also involved in like crime somehow. Like there's kind of like 5 crime lords of this city, and they use the fraternities as like this like vetting / recruitment thing, which is so weird. Like honestly, there's like a lot of weird things that are just really absurd in this series, which honestly makes it so good. Okay, hear me out. You know how like when you're watching like Pretty Little Liars and it's just like hot garbage, but in the absolute best way possible? Like it is just the most absurd thing. Like it's so absurd that it almost doesn't make sense, but it is so entertaining and you're just like enjoying the crap out of it. Like it doesn't make sense, but it's so good anyways. That's what this series is like. I'm just gonna own it and just tell you, I think it's really well written. The other thing that I think is really impressive too is that like the first trilogy follows these 3 dudes and this one girl, because this is like a why choose romance series, and the second series also follows 1 girl and 3 men, and all of these 8 characters feel so very, very different. The characters are very, very well written. I mean, they're psychotic and they do some very sketchy, illegal things, but they're so fleshed out. And I do really think that it shows the strength of the authors, because it's 2 authors, but I think it shows the strength of their writing that they're able to write all 8 of these characters and they all feel so different to each other. Like, I think that that is really, really important, especially when you consider like how different like the fraternities are from each other and when you consider the world. So the first trilogy in this series I rated 3.5 stars. I actually ended up rating this second trilogy only 3 stars. I mean, like, the main thing that is different and why I rated this second trilogy less comes down to like 2 things. I want to make it clear though that I think the overall writing has really improved from like the craft and the plotting and the characters. So I think that the second trilogy is objectively better. However, I liked the characters in the first trilogy better. So like, from an enjoyment point of view, I enjoyed the first trilogy more because it is so character driven. I still enjoyed the second trilogy. I just didn't like mainly one of the characters. And then my other issue, which is like the main crux of why I rated it lower, is that one of the characters in the second trilogy has like some very serious psychological issues, like with trauma and some psychosis issues and things like that. And obviously, like, I like to see some mental health issue representation. I just don't know that I like necessarily how the whole situation was handled. And I mean, like, there are some reasons for why it's handled. There's like a lot of mistrust with the character and like the health system for like very valid reasons. But like, I kind of feel like, even though this is a dark romance novel, I do feel like some of the characters' problems were like solved because of the romance. And it's like, I don't think that that is necessarily like a valid way to solve mental health issues. Speaking as someone who has mental health issues, albeit not these ones and definitely not this extreme, I would have liked to see that part of the plot maybe be handled in a different way. But yeah, that is my second trilogy in the dark romance genre. And you know what? Like, I like this series. I'm gonna keep reading it. I'm just owning that I like it. Okay, those are the 11 books, sort of, that I read in October. I hope this video wasn't too long for you, but thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me today. I really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I hope that you stay safe this week, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!